Yes, yes.
Thank you so much. So here we are starting the session with a very inspirational quote. Success is the good fortune that comes from aspiration, perspiration, and inspiration. A very good afternoon to all. I am Arpana Kumari, Assistant Professor at GL Bajaj Institute of Management and Research. Today, on behalf of entire GL Bajaj fraternity, it's a pleasure extending a warm welcome to Mohammad Mushtaba Tabriz ji, DGM HR and Lead HRBP at BIF PCL Dhaka, Bangladesh. A warm greetings to respected Dr. Ajay Kumar Sir, Director GLPIMR. Welcome all the faculty members and dear students to this very special webinar under Expert Talk series on changing global scenario and expectations, role of management professionals. Before we start any important session, it's our tradition to pay tribute to Mother Saraswati, also known as Goddess of Knowledge. So to make this session a blessed one, let's invoke Goddess. I would request you all to please join us in the prayer.
या कुन्देन्दु तुषारहार धवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रामृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या पद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतं शङ्करं प्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती
Thank you all. May the divine Thank you everyone. May the divine grace of God be with us today and always. So today we have amongst us a very versatile personality, Mohammad Mushtaba Tabriz ji, DGM HR and Lead HRBP at BIF PCL Dhaka, Bangladesh. He's a value-based, highly collaborative, strategic business partner focused on delivering improved business outcomes through proven performance management, culture, and talent practices. Multi-country experience in designing and implementing innovative strategies in digital transformation, diversity and inclusion and employment engagement he has. His areas of expertise are board-level stakeholder management, organizational design, talent management, succession planning. He possesses very important skills that are SAP implementation, performance management, and performance appraisal. He has been accorded with certification in Harvard Manager Mentor Organizational Leadership. A very warm welcome once again, sir. We at GLBIMR feel delighted to organize this webinar. The Institute was established in 2007 under the visionary guidance of Shri Pankaj Agarwal ji, Vice Chairman GLBIMR. The Institute embarked on the journey to reinvent management education in NCR. And in record time of 13 years, GLBIMR has demonstrated remarkable growth and has received various awards and accolades. We would like to share that GLBIMR is conferred with Certificate of Merit for Outstanding Contribution in the field of education by Competition Success Review. And the Institute is flourishing every day under the stewardship of Director Dr. Ajay Kumar Sir. Dr. Ajay Kumar Sir is a strategic thinker, academician with revolutionary spirit. He carries more than 33 years of experience in academics, research, training, and consultancy, and he has successfully organized more than 200 national and international seminars and conferences on diverse issues of management practices. For his relentless efforts towards academic excellence, he has been awarded by several national and international bodies. He has been recently accorded by Philip Kotler Award 2020 by Laura Rice, President Rice and Rice Georgia, USA, Inspirational Icon of the Year 2020 by Integrated Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to name a few. Today's webinar is an initiative of the GLBIMAR to impart knowledge and stimulate thought exchange between students and industry experts to make students corporate ready in sync with current trends and challenges of the global scenario. With these lines, I would now request our director, Dr. Ajay Kumar sir, to please deliver the welcome address. Please, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of GL Bajaj Institute of Management and Research, I feel privileged to welcome Mohammad Mustafa Tabriz, DGM HR at BIFPCL, Dhaka, Bangladesh. I would like to add here, and I would like to inform you all that Mohammad Mustafa Tabriz was my student earlier, and he did MBA under my supervision. I was perhaps one of his teachers also. So it's a great privilege. Again, it's a great privilege because listening to your student after some time, your ex-student, not student, ex-student, after some time, when he reaches certain height, naturally it's always a matter of great pleasure and delight. So, welcome Mohammad Mustafa. It's a great pleasure for me to see you, though on screen. Now, he has been invited here for Expert Talk series, and he will be deliberating on changing global scenario and expectations, role of management professionals. Although topic is very generic in nature, but the current environment has made this topic very pertinent and worth discussing. All of you know that no country, company, executive team, or individual leader will be immune from COVID-19 impact, not today, but even in near future too. No strategy is going to survive fully intact. Scenario thinking and sensing capabilities can strengthen the courage and conviction of executives to lead through these unique but tough times. For a generation of business leaders, we have been opening and living through what we believe very, very uncertain times. Continual upheavals, disruptions, and global shifts like digitization, technology transformation, changing geopolitics, evolving business models, and a changing consensus on globalization and trade have for decades challenged the very notion of executive decision making and global business scenario. The COVID-19 pandemic, however, is changing or has already changed our collective calculus of uncertainty, because there is no reference case of COVID-19 crisis in living memory or history of centuries. There have been flu pandemics, there have been Black Monday, there have been 2008 financial crisis also. There have been several localized threats and disasters with regional or national implications, like we know about crisis in the Japan, Chernobyl, the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, 9/11, Hurricane Katrina, and many more. But from a vantage point, the COVID-19 pandemic is more global in scope, more profoundly impactful and far-reaching, and more complex than any other crisis that today's decision makers have experienced or contemplated. So naturally, uncertainty is there, uncertainty will prevail, but businesses are going to survive, and business enterprises, they are coming up with the new strategies globally. If we talk about the expectations, naturally, everyone is looking for a positive future post-COVID-19, and everyone is trying to shoulder certain responsibilities. Because in uncertain times, as any executives or any senior management, they are not spared of the responsibility as far as it's related with critical decision making. If anything, the time frame for making choices shortened, even the contextual uncertainty makes decision making commensurately harder. In our experience though, many executives and boards tend toward one of two types of response on uncertainty. The first is to recognize its existence, depth, and complexity, but to become paralyzed by it. The alternative is rashness in the fact of uncertainty, as though to whisk away complexity. Naturally, those who are going to survive, those who are going to excel, those who are going to change the world in the current context fall under second category. Because businesses are not only for the businessmen, businesses are very integral to the survival of the human being, because it generates revenue, it generates employment, and it creates economic conditions of any country or the globe. With this background, I would personally like to invite the young but dynamic professional not only to deliberate on the subject, but also to share his own experiences. And I believe that while staying in Dhaka, where challenges are also manifold, Mohammad Tabrez must have very, very pertinent experience, very topical experience about the changes, because for many, many industries, specifically if you talk about cotton and clothes, Dhaka or Bangladesh have been dependent on its export. So there must be some idea, or there must be some light on this particular aspect of global uncertainty or global business opportunities, as well as expectations from the businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable insights. Indeed, rightly mentioned by you that uncertainty will prevail, but business will function with its own strategy. And those who excel in the change scenario, they can create the economic condition in an improvised form. Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable insight once again. Now I'm going to invite the eminent guest of the day, Mohammad Mushtaba Tabrez ji, to enlighten the budding manager. Please, sir.
Yeah, Mustafa would like to share some slides also, so the rights should be given to him from the beginning itself.
Right, sir.
So Dr. Amit and other concerned faculty members, they should immediately facilitate him with sharing rights.
Right,
Okay,
sir. Given, sir.
okay.
Very good afternoon to all of you. Now, first of all, I would like to start with this, that I'm never an ex-student, sir. Learning is a journey, and I'm never your ex-student. At least for I can say it's surely for you. I have always been in touch with you, and it's a pleasure to come back and touch base with your alma mater, especially your mentors. So the pleasure is all mine. I am never your ex-student, sir. I've always be your student.
Thank you. Thank you.
Another thing I would like to inform everybody here is, so I see there is around 120 participants already logged in, and now the pressure is on me to make their time worthwhile. So I'll try and make it as interesting for all of you. But before I do that, let me just tell you a brief about from where I come from. What exactly I'm bringing to the table. So So like sir has mentioned, yes, we started, I started my journey long back, and I'm a science student at heart, which means that I'm always inquisitive about finding, new avenues, new solutions, but embarked onto a journey of management, which was actually not really a path I had planned before, and then I embarked on it and started to enjoy it. So before even, so I did my graduation from Delhi University, Kirodimal College. And then after that, I did my MBA from IB University. And like sir has mentioned, those days, the college sir was chairing used to be the best of the lot. And we had such a gala time. We were a student, we were a class of 26, and I think we are still in touch. And it was a wonderful band of people from different backgrounds. So I come from, I'm partly, my mother is from Iran, my father is from Allahabad. I'm Allahabadi at heart. Knew nothing about Bangla, knew nothing about the Bangladeshi culture. And so I never thought that I would end up heading HR for a company which will be so far out my horizon. But anyways, so I represent two companies here. I would just try to for everybody's just background. So I originally belong to NTPC, and which is a power behemoth, not for just for India but also for Asia. We have close to 70,000 megawatt installed capacity. I understand that a lot of you would be from science background, so I'm just going to go ahead and elaborate the technicalities of it. So what happens is when you compare the installed capacity of Bangladesh is just 20,000 megawatt. The whole country's installed capacity is 20,000 megawatt. And my single company's capacity is 62,000 megawatt. So you can imagine the experience that we NTPCians bring to the table. Now, long back, so to bring out the sector, now, as you understand, NTPC is a public sector undertaking. Now, for a public sector undertaking, one of the biggest motive or the reason what you call the reason for their existence is also to uplift the sector as a whole and support the country. So long back, India decided that we're gonna charter a foreign path and we're gonna start some relationship with our neighboring countries. We tried doing that with Bhutan, we tried doing that with Sri Lanka. So NTPC was always spearheading that campaign because obviously it was the biggest power producer in India and in Asia. So we tried negotiating few things in Sri Lanka. We did that for a while also. And we were not very successful. Then again, so many of you would probably be taking verticals of marketing, of which our Ajay Kumar sir is a stalwart, I would say. So in marketing and business development, you knock on 100 doors and you only are able to find 1 or 2 open. And the idea is that those 1 or 2 open should be worthwhile knocking on another 100 doors. So that way we ended up coming to Bangladesh. We started our project. So it took us about 10 years to just get the momentum, gather the momentum. 2017, the first team came in here for the feasibility study. And 2000, I was part of that. And I was the sole person in HR. Now, imagine the structure. So NTPC has 19,000 employees, all right? Now imagine a company which you're supposed to set up in a foreign locale with no prior experience, a terrain which you are not absolutely aware of, a language which very few of your people speak, and a culture which is very similar, but at the same time is quite different as well. And you have to do a startup which is a power startup. So when we talk about power, what happens is that there are 2 very different stages of a power company from a business point of view. So one is the construction stage. Now in construction stage, what happens is that you require a very different aptitude of people. Your floating manpower, which is your contractual manpower, is very, very high. So if, just to give you a perspective, if you have operational manpower or your own role manpower of say around 100, the number of contractual manpower will run into about 8 to 9,000. So that is the ratio of difference that, you know, kind of, and those that can contractual manpower has to be partly local, and it's also an affirmative action which is going in every country, which means you're supposed to support the local populace, you're supposed to employ them. Now, another challenge that BFPCL faced when we were setting up power here is that the technology that we were working for is a cutting edge technology which has never been attempted in Bangladesh. So our turbine, just to you know, elaborate on it further. So there is the turbine that we are putting up here is 660 megawatt machine. Now in Bangladesh, the highest capacity machine which has been used is 220 megawatt. So imagine, so they have no perspective, they have no background, they have no skill set to help us. And we are only dependent on the skilled manpower from India or from Malaysia or from China, other places, right? So now on this, everything is all right. We have set up our shop. We are just, you know, going gung-ho about it. I mean, and we are just, you know, about to embark on a big journey. The construction is going on. The first unit, so there were 2 units of 660 megawatt. 1 unit is about to, you know, be put in place, and there comes COVID. And when this comes, it is something which, you know, nobody has ever experienced. I have no idea. Bangladesh has no idea. Nobody in the world has any idea. There are no playbooks by which you can just copy and learn. Now, at this instance, I just want to, what is the biggest problem that, Arpana, I don't know if it would make sense. Is it okay to make it interactive? Can I just go ahead and pose a question? Is it allowed?
Yeah, you can pose a question. Students may write in the chat box.
Oh, they will write in the chat box. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, now see, that's what COVID has done. A person who was very, very comfortable right on the stage to deliver a lecture lasting 5 hours. Now I have to, you know, rely on those chat boxes to listen to the responses. But then again, so my questions to all of you would be, what is the biggest adjustment you would have done since you came across COVID? Just a few things that you off the cuff, which you can just share. You know, what are the biggest problem you faced? So yeah, okay, go ahead, shoot. So I'm gonna just to give it a perspective, I'm gonna write down studying on virtual platform. Studying on virtual platform is a problem. Yes, no traveling. All right. Somebody says staying home all this time is also a problem. Okay, not meeting my sister, making use of digital media. Okay, so you see the perspective. Now, you are 113 people, not interacting with new people. Okay, this guy is definitely going to go to marketing. I'm sure. He is meant for marketing. Studying on virtual platform. Okay. Studying on virtual platform. So pretty much majority of us think that, you know, teaching virtually without chalk and duster. One of the teacher possibly. Missing her classes, or that is all wrong. Okay, this guy is very politically correct. Nobody misses classes, especially when you're studying, but glad to know. All right, thank you so much. So I'm gonna come back. So now imagine you are 113 people and you have come with certain background. You've had, you are techno savvy. You belong to the generation X or Y. The generation X or Y, which is very digitally active, and in fact, more digitally active than, you know, in physical, and multiply that by, you know, 8,000. So those very same problems, and just multiply it by 8,000. And that is exactly what I had to face when we just started. This daunting task, which was a very difficult task. So now coming back to the BFPCL is actually a joint venture company between NTPC and the government of Bangladesh. Now the government of Bangladesh also has a power arm, which is called Bangladesh Power Development Board. Now, like I mentioned, Bangladesh Power Development Board has the total installed capacity of 20,000 megawatt, and they are joining hand with a company which is 62,000 megawatt, just one company. Now I'm talking about the whole sector and just one company. It was a marriage of unequals in every sense. We are coming from a very blessed nation. Bangladesh, as you know, has not been that blessed in terms of prosperity and stuff. Ajay sir mentioned that textile is a boom. So textile is in fact the mainstay of this economy. Other than that, there is hardly anything created here. There is the consumerism is only until the food. So machli ke aage kuch nahi hai. That is the thing that they would go. But beyond that, so somebody just mentioned it's 50 years old. Bangladesh is very true, but the land is few hundred years old. So the country may be 50 years old, but it was still a part of us, and the people were still living there. So yes, from that perspective, there are a lot of things which they do very differently. They had no perspective on, they had no background on. But when this marriage was done, you are supposed to carry your partner, all right? So you are supposed to carry it on your own steam. The things which you are not aware of about them, we're gonna go ahead and carry it forward, because it was about the prestige issue for India. This was one flagship project. So India has done a lot of consultancy assignments all across the world. We have done it for a lot of third world nations, for African nations, but we have never embarked or we never pulled out a turnkey project for any country. So this is a first for India, so far as power project goes. So with that perspective, it was a very, very difficult task. Then we came across a situation that this, out of the COVID, now the immigrant crisis which happened in India also started to affect us. And so what really happened is that the migrant labor, which was a skilled labor, which we had taken in from India, it came to Bangladesh. And so we were about to say around close to 3,000 total workers were on contract with us. And within a span of day, we started to have a situation that they want to go back. Now the borders are closed. You have no way, and well, we do look similar, but we are not similar. As in, if I don't open my mouth, I will look like any other Bangladeshi. Or if they don't open the mouth, they will look like us Indians. But we are different. We hold a different passport. We hold different privileges. You can't just pick up your passport and just, cross the border. Now, most of these workers who had come to Bangladesh, they've never been on a foreign shore before. So all of a sudden, we started to face a situation that they didn't want to stay come what may. And they just instantly wanted to be repatriated back. And I was the sole HR person. I have a team of 6 Bangladeshis, which I have recruited. They support me, but none of them have that kind of experience. They've never had that experience. So I bring with me about 15 years of experience in NTPC itself. That's probably the reason why we went here. Now, so what I'm trying to make you understand is the COVID, everybody is thinking of it as this, dark and evil force, which has just, taken the whole of humanity to hundreds of years of, back. But I want to give you a different perspective. You consider COVID to be only negative, or do you really think that there is some positives also which we can get out of it? to everyone again. Positive as well. What are the positives? Healing of environment. All right. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to ask you. There's a small clip that I want all of you to watch, and then we're going to pose the same question again, and we'll discuss on that. So this is a small clip which has no sound, so don't worry about it. Just watch the clip. All right. And I don't know how to do it. So I've gone to, all right, so I have to go to my webinar. Where is my, there is no, so I don't go to my desktop.
You need to go to share screen.
Share screen, I did that.
I think that clip is open in your background.
Is it?
On your desktop, it is open. It should open.
I have it on, so I'm getting different screens here now. I don't know how to go around it. Okay, I'll go to files. I got it. No.
Oh,
Clip
okay.
should
If I
should
may
be
suggest,
Yeah.
if I
Please
may
go ahead.
suggest, you please open that video clip in the background.
Yes,
Okay.
visible.
I think I got it. Just give me a second. Yeah. So see how ancient I am now. Is it visible?
Your files are visible right now. Yeah, the clip is not. The clip needs to be open before you are sharing your screen.
Oh, it needs to be okay.
Now, once you start, you
So
stop
it is in the
sharing this
background.
one. Yeah, it is in the background. Now you stop sharing this one.
Okay.
And
Now again share. Yeah, it's there now. Please start once again, please.
All right. Just take a look and tell me what you observe. All right. Shoot. Ideas. What do you see? What do you see? What exactly was happening? Can somebody just explain? Just open your mic and say, no problem. The hen is eating food only from pink plate. Okay. All right. So somebody used the right word here. Now, you all must have in your course of your management, you will classical conditioning. Yeah, somebody's read their books properly. Very nice. So what happens is that now am I visible or my screen is visible? Am I visible?
You are
now?
visible. You
All
are
right,
visible
fine.
now.
So yeah, now. So the thing is, what I want to emphasize here is, the disruptive and the stressful experiences. What was exactly happening there is something very similar to Pavlov's experiment. You must have read during your management, or maybe you will read. So what they were trying to do is that with that hen, they were rewarding every time she was picking on that pink slip. Now every time that reward was given, so the pink plate was not actually serving the food, but every time she was touching the pink plate, she was been rewarded with the food. So what exactly happened is that even if there was another slip right next to her, she would go all the way down to just touch on that pink plate. And it just went on and on and on, even if she was looking around for that pink plate. And that's exactly this becomes the paradigm. This becomes the norm. This becomes the problem with most of the big companies. Mind you, I'm an Indian, all right? So I take this a little liberty to tell you that this is also a very, very Indianism. कि जब तक टूटा नहीं यार चलने दो, जब टूटेगा तब ठीक करेंगे. And that's the philosophy we go by. So if it ain't broke, let's not fix it. But that is exactly what crisis does to you. The crisis comes and just simply breaks all the barriers, breaks away all the prejudices, breaks all, your age-old practices. So coming back to the topic of the day, what do you do as a professional? Now, I as HR professional or as a management professional, what do you do? What according to you should be the first thing that you should be doing? Let's start again on the chat box. What exactly should be the first? Any disruption, anything which challenges your status quo. And mind it, we all thrive by status quos. We want to stay to the status quo. We want to just, this is my comfort zone. I don't want to come out of it. I don't wish to, change. Why to change? Why? Because change is always difficult to manage. So for Arpana ma'am holding this webinar on this platform is a challenge. Let's not do it at all. That is far easier a choice. Why to do it? When the COVID will go, the learnings can start. But she chose to do it. Or the management or Ajay sir thought of doing it and has been doing it. So what I'm trying to ask you is that this crisis, it just opens up new paradigms, new vistas for you. And that's where your main role comes into the play, right? The first thing which you need to do, and any management professional, we are trained to act. Right? Moment there is a crisis or moment there is a situation which has developed, your first role is to act. But is this the right strategy? You don't know. A crisis which is of this proportion, a crisis which is affecting not just you, everybody around you, your family, your son, your wife, your old parents who belong to a different generation. But what you need to do is be patient. The first thing that you need to do is to be patient, because you're still in the eye of the storm. You understand? We almost half a year has passed and we are still in the eye of the storm. We have not, the light at the end of the tunnel, nobody can see right now. So if I start to have my strategy, and I see, okay, this is a strategy I've chosen and I'm going to live by it, it may not work because things are still transpiring. Things are still happening. Things are still changing. So first thing is that to be patient. First thing. Now, if I don't be patient, I will start to change the whole setup. I mean, I can go ahead and start to do a webinar, all right? But how would I go back and find out that how much of it is helpful to the students learning? Where exactly on the curve are they going? Or is it only a waste of time where, one person is sharing the same screen and everybody else is watching some other movies on the side? There's no way of, so Aparna ma'am would never be able to, in her dreams, come to know that what Mujtaba Tabriz babbled for 1.5 hours, how many of it was taken away? She has no way to know this. She's just going by what is trust. This is another very, very important facet which I want to bring to the table. Value and trust. In the pandemic, the companies which are going to survive, have you come, I'm sure you guys know, you guys must be reading more magazines and more HBRs than me these days, because this is again, you are Generation Y. You're more tech savvy than me. But have you seen that how many of Ubers and how many of these tech companies, Swiggies and things, they have gone off, off their charts. They've gone just, kaput. You realize why? I mean, they are the companies who were the nouveau rich companies, who were the sunrise companies of our times. And just all of a sudden, they are just making hue and cries. They're the one making the maximum number of layoffs. You must have come across, yeah, a lot of unemployment they are causing. All of a sudden, they were the ones who were the biggest employers, and now all of a sudden they are causing the maximum layoffs, maximum furloughs. On the contrast, the brick and mortar companies, so all these companies were very digitally savvy, the digital companies, the ones which were, you know, the kids were attracted to. You know, in my time when I was doing my MBA, so the Google was the best employer, all right? And Google was the company to work for. I'm sure it still is. And one of the things which they were always very brag about was, you know, we have a cafeteria culture of working. You come in shorts, you come in chappals and come and walk, and so far as you deliver, we don't care. And the things that everybody used to look after was that, you know, my God, their cafeteria, I mean, in Bangalore, it is awesome. It serves 91 dishes in just lunch itself. That canteen, that was a biggest draw. I mean, it's such a nouveau, rich way of living, of working. But today, that very thing that was a pull of Google is gone. Nobody wants to go into that cafeteria and eat, or rather even drink a glass of water. Everybody's scared. The whole thing has shut. Now, what is Google's draw then? How are they going to pull people? On the contrast, so all these were digital. So I'm not saying they're going bankrupt, or not all of them. Yes, there were a lot of very rich companies. But if you see the amount of layoffs they are doing and compare that with, say, I would say, old companies with brick and mortar settings, they're not doing those many layoffs. You look at you look at DLF, you look at private sector, even Reliance for that matter. You look at NTPC, PSUs. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on us as well, but we are not laying off. So most of the brick and mortar companies, they were able to absorb the pressure. A lot of banking companies, yes. How are they able to do it? The one thing which differentiates them from everybody else is the value system. This pandemic challenged and brought out the difference between the value system of companies. It just, what do you call, took away all the shrouds which were covering and so-called window dressings which the companies were doing. What makes the difference? And I hope you all understand what value is. What exactly is value? Let me just say. What exactly do you think is value? Just off the cuff, again. Anything, your definition. I don't want a textbook definition here. Value is satisfaction. Okay. All right. I want to put it very, very succinctly and very plainly. Value is, from a business point of view, value is what you're doing when nobody is looking, when nobody is watching you. That is value. That is your value system. If nobody is watching me, and there is a some treatment I'm supposed to met out to somebody, and there's nobody to supervise me, how I treat my employees when nobody's watching. So now in pandemic, what has happened? The bosses are not there to watch. They just have no way of knowing. So if there is a sales guy who's been given a target to meet 100 clients a day, he can jolly well go ahead and say that I have met them. There's no way for me to monitor it. But a value, another dimension of value is that, value is always binary. It is not on a continuum. Matlab, if your value is, मैं झूठ नहीं बोलूँगा. I hope everybody is comfortable with Hindi. Is it okay with everyone?
Yeah, please.
All right. So मैं झूठ नहीं बोलूँगा. Now, if that is a value, either you will not tell a lie or you will tell a lie. उसमें ये नहीं होता कि 15 साल से बड़ा हुआ तो मैं उसको तो झूठ नहीं बोलूँगा, उससे नीचे वाले को मैं लल्लू बनाऊँगा. Or if my the target my is gonna give me a lot of money back, तो मैं उसको बेवकूफ बनाऊंगा. If it is just one single client, I will not do it. Value is always binary. Either you do it or you don't do it. You follow it or you don't follow it. It is not on a continuum. Now, we in India, we in third world countries, most of us have been taught that, chalta hai. Now, that chalta hai caused the majority of the companies to have problem now. The brick and mortar companies, the old companies, the companies which were, considered to be very orthodox, their value system was very, very pure and very intact. They lived by it, and hence they were able to absorb most of the pressure. Now you will see these are the companies who will rise back much earlier than the other, those, savvy, tech savvy companies. So value again is also one of the things which you have to be very fixated upon, work upon as management professionals. Now, okay, in this conversation, anything, so you are about 100 odd people. Now, any questions that come to your mind, or anybody want to just stop me, I'll just shoot on your chat, and I'll just elaborate on it further. All right. During another aspect that we also have understood now very rightly is in earlier times, especially in marketing areas, we used to have star performers. All right. The star performers were the ones who used to get maximum business to the table. Okay. How somebody has asked a question, how can we continue to operate effectively if employees have to work remotely? Okay. I'll come to these questions again. So let me just finish what I was saying, that, the star performers, which were the mainstay of the company was spending maximum on them. They were the ones who were getting all the laurels. All of a sudden, the organization realized that it is the team which matters, not an individual. So even the star performers, they have to fall in line and form a team. And that is where the difference with you're not a motley group. You are a team. A team means that each of the contribution is always aimed at a single goal. Now, I may have a group. Somebody who is a sales professional, or somebody who would be a marketing professional, somebody who would be a HR professional. They all will bring their trade to the table. But if I have a team, the team would be to maximize value for my company. Now, everybody, if that is my goal, that makes me a team. Now, HR will do their work to maximize the value that their company brings to the table. Marketing will do only the strategies which increases the value of their product. Sales will drive the product which maximizes the value for the company. So this kind of strategy also was something which most of the companies are unaware of, especially again nouveau rich companies. And we always learn from our mistakes, but this is a crisis which basically was all pervasive. I have no way of asking my fellow ones that, buddy, what did you do when this happened to you? Because that guy is going to just turn back and say, another issue that we need to understand is that we all are in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat. We are, yes, it is the same storm which is affecting the companies, the people, but we are not in the same boat. Somebody has been cut a very, very raw deal. So, for an example, now I belong to a company which has unlimited medical facility, all right? Like NTPC does not have a cap on the medical facility that they can provide. There have been instances that we have cleared a bill of an employee worth running into about 2 crores. he had an accident and went on and had to be shifted to various hospitals in India, and then was shifted to US, and finally got some treatment from there. The bill was about 2 crores, and it was passed by the management. So I belong to a company where there are no caps on my medical facilities, but I am working with hand in hand with let's say Bangladeshis who are here, who have just some cap, or to move forward, include people, the contract workers. They have absolutely no money. And we all are experiencing the same storm. We all are experiencing the same pain. We all are experiencing the same COVID situation here. Now, if I say that my reaction to it is the best reaction, or this should be the reaction of a contract labor, that's not correct. It's a wrong expectation to have. So that's what happened exactly, that when the pandemic struck BFPCL, so somebody has asked that how did COVID situation you managed to cope up with the workforce related issues? So I'm going to just elaborate on that. So what happens is that when we all got stuck, the borders were closed. We were told, now there is no way for you to go back to India. You are supposed to man your project. So I have assets. So my total billion worth is $2,007 million worth is of this project. That's the cost of this project. Now, out of that, 500 crores has already been invested. Now, there are a lot of assets which we've already put in place. Now, the easiest thing for me to save my life, I'm in a foreign location, is to just shut my shop and go back. Everybody. It is easier said than done. The employees, so like I mentioned, so I have a full medical cover. I continue to stay. But if for me to expect that even the contract labor had to stay because I'm staying, that's not correct. That poor guy had no way to, if he gets affected, he does not have enough money to cover for his medical facilities. So we ramped up our medical facilities. We did tie-ups with Bangladesh hospitals. We started doing, regular checkups with them. We started having, all of a sudden, we made a medical center within a span of, so like you heard about story about Delhi and other places setting up quarantine camps. Within a span of 3 days, we had to set up a quarantine camps for 2,000 number of labor. Those camps, also we had to deploy around 6 doctors who we deployed on ad hoc basis apart from our own medical team. And they started doing, all these checks and all these routine checkups of all the laborers to ensure that they're staying. But at the same time, a lot of them wanted to leave. And we had we didn't know what to do. So if we were a Nuvo company, I would have done that, boss, you are not doing my work. You are a cost to me. Why should I spend any money on you? But being a NTPC, being the company which has values in place, what we did, we all contributed and we started chartering planes. So we have funded, and these are not the stories which you hear, all right? So Sonu Sood has chartered a plane, and Sonu Sood has chartered some buses for some contract laborers, and these are all over the news. But what many people do not know is that NTPC has done the same. Many of us, we have chartered planes for these contract labor who were stuck here, and all of them were sent back with all their salaries and everything. Why? Because like I mentioned, my story is not the same as theirs. I can stay put here, knowing very well that if anything goes southways, my company will be able to take care of me. But for them who are, earning by the day, they have no way, they have no backups, and they wanted to leave. So we had to make them leave, and we ensured their return. Now, what has happened is that the biggest thing which we have done, you will not believe, is in the contract labor market, it is always, unheard of. So the people I sent back, around 1,800 we sent back, 200 stayed back. Those 1,800, they have themselves opted to return within a span of 6 months. So they went back since we facilitated their return, and we helped them during the return to India. They have gone back. We met their families, stayed there, quarantined there, seen everything is all right, and they have chosen to come back and take employment back with BFPCL, only in the name of NTPC. They have come back and asking for the same employment, same level with us. Now, if I had, what I had done is, allowed them or stopped them from leaving and, given them a hard time, or I told them, boss, this is your passport, go find your own method. I don't know. I don't care. Just let them loose. I would have lost their trust. Now, these 1,800 people that I left, these very same people are coming back in hordes and all. And they're coming and, same thing we did for Bangladeshi labor as well. So there were about 3,000 Bangladeshi labor. They wanted to go back. The moment the pandemic struck, they wanted to go back. What we did was, we increased their medical cover. We got tie-ups with the quarantine. So we have a lot of pull with the government. So we started a tie-up with the government hospital here. And the government hospital started to give them priority treatments and also priority testing, not just for them, but also for their families. So this, I'm talking about the Bangladeshi labor. So then again, when we opened our doors 6 months later, when we started to reinduction, they again have come back. They want to work with BFPCL. No other company they want to work with. They want to work with BFPCL. So this is what we have done. So my point being, if I was not patient, if I was not going by the book, going by the value system that I have, the easiest thing for me to do was to save my money, let them go. Doesn't matter, I will have more. But we chose not to do that. And now we are earning, their trust, and now we are, getting their trust back in return. They are the people who are going to stay with this company for the longest time. So as professionals, there is always, how best I can do it, how best I can, manage this situation. What is the best option? And though that best option may be the right option is always the hardest option, but you got to take that. You got to use that option, leverage it for your benefit, align it with your targets, align with your management's decisions. Also, now this I'm talking about management. Now what comes to HR especially is, we are also the conscience keepers. We are not just the policy implementers. We are also the people who are supposed to tell what is wrong and right to the leadership. In the real sense, what is a more humanitarian approach to take? What is the right thing to do? We are the ones who have to, give the conscience to the leadership, the management. And that's where, your role becomes very, very important. You want to shut and then say what everybody else is doing. So what everybody else is doing, laying people off, left, right, and center. But we are not, we chose not to do it. So since we did not do it, we are now, we are at the receiving end of it. We are, getting the benefit of it. We are the employer of choice in Bangladesh. So just to give you an instance, when we floated out our recruitment, so I have the first bunch of my engineering trainees who were supposed to join me. They are waiting for they already have offers from the civil services of Bangladesh, but they're choosing to stay with BFPCL because they know this is the company which has a heart, which has a value system, and which will teach them something which will be, they will become technocrats of future. So that's how we, few of the things I did. I think I hope I'm not overshooting my time, or I have, Arpana.
We will, we can take question answers also.
Fine. So that's about my story.
So,
let's hear some questions and I'll try and answer as much as I can. And
yeah, so I think the same question, which was the first one, how can we continue to operate effectively if employees have to work remotely for a prolonged period of time?
So one of the ways that you can do is that you keep asking them for direction. You know, you keep every time there is a meeting, suppose, and you are the say the team leader. You go back and ask them, okay, so what is in the last 1 week, the last time when we had a meeting, from there to now, what is one thing that you have learned? And what is one thing which you have achieved? Now, this feedback mechanism, you have to build now remotely. Now, earlier you could see things in action. You could really validate whatever has happened because you could see it. You could see that, okay, there is a sales which has been brought in. There is some work which has been accomplished. There's a target that has been met. But now you are simply relying. So you force your employees and your members to, you know, think beyond the role they have. And I think that is one of the way that you can, you know, put a feedback in place if you are going to continue to work remotely.
Second question, it is again by Rashi. What challenges have you faced while starting up, especially on the grounds of different culture, background, language, and the different country?
All right. So first thing which I did was I learned the language. All right. So I'm a part Persian. Persian is my first language. Urdu is my second language. Indian, in fact, is my third language. But I had to evolve because I knew. So I don't know, many of you know this, but Bangladesh's revolution. So India's independence was around Swaraj, but Bangladesh's revolution was around their language. I don't know, many of you know this or not. Okay, so Bangladesh's revolution for independence was centered around their freedom for language. So what Pakistan did was they wanted to implement Urdu to be the language of the court and of the government. And they wanted to say that we are different. For us, Bangla is more important than Urdu. I mean, we don't speak that language. And hence the clash started and then went into, you know, finally the revolution. So for them, Bangladeshis, language is the most important. One of the essential qualities Priya Kiran is asking me is this: own up your work. Own your work. If I had not, so imagine a country which was so passionate about their language, and I had started to say, I'm going to talk in English, you know, and you better learn. I want to build a team. I'm building my company from ground up, and I'm telling them, boss, I will not learn your language in your own country. You better get up and learn English and talk to me. So what I did was I started to learn. Now in the last couple of years, I have started to speak Bangla pretty well. I understand almost 100% of it. Although my accent is out of what majority would understand, but I do make way. They appreciated that, and that's how I earned their trust. Now I am the go-to person for any of the Bangladeshis. So I'm in HR. I mean, I am the person, a troubleshooter for them. If I don't choose to build trust with them, how will I help them? I'm their, you know, their mother figure, their father figure, and their agony aunt, all three together. And if I don't choose, and if I speak a different language, every time they come to me, how will I do my work? How will I build that trust? So own your work and always be truthful to what you say. And most importantly, build value system in place, because that is going to take you the farthest.
One question I would like to understand from students, when all the students are budding managers and they have just joined the management program, so they would be looking into the field of HR, marketing, finance, and all those specializations. So what the basic skills, as you yourself is in HR, so interviewing and considering things as a fresh graduates they would be. So what are the basic 3 to 4 skills that you would like to suggest at this point of time the students that they can start working on from today itself?
All right. So, you know, I always say there are 2 stages to learning. All right. One is when you are you know, in science, there is always called consumer and producer. You know, you must have read that. And consumers are we carnivores and omnivores, people who eat even herbivores, and producers are plants. right, who make the food. And there is the other party who takes the food. Now, one thing which I want all of you to know when you're embarking on when you want to go out and find a job, one habit which you can inculcate right now is to go on that learning curve where from consumer, you become a producer. So by consumer, what I mean is that read. Please pick up a habit to read. You know, you can always find out the difference between a person who has read and person who has not read. 15 minutes of conversation, you would come to know that whether that person has read or not read. So one start would be to have habit of reading. Read what you like, what related to your trade or beyond your trade. And second is then also start to produce, which means start to even write, not just read. That is the second stage. So your knowledge becomes available to others also. Do whatever you like. You want to write a blog, go ahead and write a blog. You want to post a article, go ahead and post an article, but write. So that these are the two things that I would expect you to do. And communication is important. Language is not. Communication is important. Have clarity in your thoughts as to what would be your language of choice, and then stick to it. So these are the two things I would like to, definitely emphasize in the time I have.
Yeah. Rightly mentioned, reading, writing, and specifying, focusing on communication skills, very rightly mentioned by you. One question, a very common question is there in the mind of the students who want to take HRA specialization, that limited opportunities, is it for the girls or boys? So what's your
Oh my
say on
God.
this? How would you like to
Oh my
motivate
God.
them?
Oh my God. So you know what? Ajay sir is right here. So what happened is that in our last management college where sir was there, so I was the anchor for their annual festival. All right. I was the anchor. It was a 5-day festival, I think 3-day festival. And I was the anchor, and there were students from all other management colleges, and it was a huge success. Sir was there. It was a huge, huge success for the college as well as personally for me. And when I said, so everybody assumed that I would be in marketing. You understand? Everybody assumed, since he is able to communicate, since he is able to, hold a fort on a stage, he has to be in marketing. Why else would he choose? And I chose, I very consciously was very clear that I have to choose HR. The most important facet of any company is HR. Right now, does not matter. It does not matter who says that there are not opportunities, or who says only sales and marketing will have opportunities. I don't agree with that. The opportunities are available according to what you bring to the table. What do you bring to the table? What differentiator you bring to the table? Now, I want to tell you again on the last question, I will just try to, converge these two. There has to be one USP of you. There will be 8 people vying for a position. What do you bring to the table? What is one additional thing that you bring to the table other than those 7? That has to be a USP. If you bring that, and it can be any goddamn thing, trust me, it can be, something which is you think very irrelevant, but if you do bring it to the table, if you're good at it, do bring it to the table. That's something that you have to be really, really proud of, and you're passionate about. Go ahead and bring to the table. That becomes the starting point of your conversation in your interview. In fact, let me just tell you, my interview for NTPC was not even just opening was, they asked me about, I'm telling you something very, very live and something I've never shared with anybody, but I want to share it because these are all young students and they're going to go out. So probably this will take away some steam off their head. My interview lasted for 35 to 40 minutes in NTPC. There was a panel of 5. The first question asked was, name 5, a very typical question, that name 5, business periodicals and business newspapers, which I did. And then they asked me, what are your hobbies? And I asked about that. No, I like to read about paranormal and movies. You will not believe the next 30 minutes. So this lasted for 5 minutes. The next 30 minutes, I was telling them about close encounters of first kind, close encounters of second kind and third kind, and what is the ET, and what are the UFOs, and stuff like that. And they were all so engrossed. Now, I want to tell you something. This is something that I knew more than all 5 of them together. So what happened is that I was leading the conversation. I was the one delivering and they were listening. But it was an interesting thing. So it's not like that you're going to go ahead and never pick up a political or religious and these kind of things. Okay, don't say this is my USP. All right, this is always the controversial subjects. But what I mean to say is that if you are passionate about reading paranormal, please bring it to the table. Tell them what you like and they will be interested. So there is a hook always in an interview, you put that out, and if that hook latches onto the interviewer, you are on. Then you are at the delivering end and the other person is at the receiving end. You are delivering and they're catching. And this is an area nobody knows. So suppose, I can tell you, there is a guy who talked about continental cooking. I interviewed him and I loved that boy. He knew about continental cooking and I just loved it because I didn't know. Now he was telling me things. So he was telling me what is saute and what is deep frying and what is sauteing and what is, all those things I had no idea about, but I loved it. And so what I'm trying to say is that bring one USP also in you, which should be the starting point of the conversation, an interesting point during interviews.
Right, superb. Last question would take, and that is there in the chat box itself. Anshuman, how do you keep your employees engaged and motivated? What practices do you follow?
All right. So man, keeping the employee engaged pre-COVID, BC and AC, that's how management professionals call it now. So BC, engagement meant something else. BC is before COVID and AC is after COVID. So BC engagement meant something else. BC engagement meant having town halls, going out to the employees and listening to their issues. In BC, engagement meant having participative forums in place, having employee own up the have fun at workplace kind of sessions, have employees take control of their career, empower them, downward empowerment, have a channel of communication which is very open. All this led to the employee engagement. You have some avenues which you were doing in your along with your employees. You were not just employing employees, you were also engaging the families. So in NTPC, we have a lot of culture of engaging the families. The wife of the employee is celebrated equally as the employee. And in fact, a lot of times the wives are actually driving the whole chart. They become the part of your whole discussion. So this was BC. Now AC, there is no osmosis of passion in a virtual webinar. I may be talking very passionately to you, but it may just cut across to only 5 of you out of 100 here. If that passion is not going across, so you have to change. So now what we start to do, so we have online quizzes which we are doing, and we are issuing right then and there. We are issuing your online market vouchers for Amazon and stuff like that. Right then and there, we are issuing them with those vouchers. We are also conducting expert series like what you've done now. We are doing internal expert series, engaging the employee's side of the story and how he managed. So they're just simply, we give them a platform where when employee says that, how I'm coping up with it. My family is, half of my family is 50 kilometers away in Dhaka and I am in Khulna. So my project is in Khulna, my head office is in Dhaka, and how I'm engaging with them and how I'm telling them, and they speak this. And so there is a common platform and there's a common consensus and people learn from each other's mistakes, what to do, what not to do, those kind of things. So we are giving them freebies on which help you, engage digitally. So these are the kind of things that we are doing. But things have changed. It's very difficult. I must tell you, Arpana, there is no way I can do enough. Yes. So there's no osmosis
we
of passion.
understand.
Yeah.
We understand, and specifically these days, HR professionals are more into the challenging phase that they have to take care of their employees of each and every department. We do understand.
But
this part. Thank you.
And I want to tell all of you who were feeling a little dizzy here. Let me tell you one thing. COVID has been a blessed opportunity for everyone because just after COVID, the HR has again come back into the picture. We are the one binding the company now. You understand that? It's huge. It's huge now. I mean, we are now heroes. We are back into the limelight. The real HR. Earlier, we were saying, you know, everything will be automated. AI will take care of everything. Now the human has come back into the picture because no AI can handle COVID. Only a human can. All right. So be happy about it. Your jobs are going to increase, in fact.
Yeah, wonderful session. Thank you so much, sir, for just enlightening all the students. Very interesting and worth listening to you throughout the session. Person of your level just came down at the level of a student and explained each and every aspect. Beautiful hand-cutting clip that you have shown to all of us. Talked about values and trust, values binary, either you follow or not follow. Very beautiful. Your inspiring journey, challenges imposed by COVID, and how your company just tried to come over that, and it's been trying to do that. NTPC chartered planes for its people and Bangladesh labor is really commendable job. Thank you so much once again. I would now request our director, Sir Dr. Ajay Kumar sir, to please share his concluding remarks about the session. Please, sir.
First of all, thank you very much, Mustafa. It was nice to see you after, I think, 14 years.
Pleasure is all mine, sir. Pleasure is all mine.
So, and definitely, as communicated by Arpana, your deliberation was wonderful. I believe that all the students must have learned a lot because see, teachers can give lectures in the classes, but they are not being believed by most of the students for the reason that they feel they do not have practical exposure. So people from industry like you, they are always very important. I remember your days also where guest faculty was very rare, guest lectures were also very rare. But yes, you too were looking for this, and you used to give all the credits to guests for their sessions. So wonderful session, very good deliberation also. Thank you very much, and I believe all these students must be having great takeaway from this session. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so before we move forward, we are here pleased to share that to harness the latent potential of the nation in sync with policy frameworks, a public charitable trust, namely International Chamber of Professional Education and Industry, ICPEI, was registered under Indian Trust Act 1882, wide registration number 1557 at Greater Noida, Gautam Buddha Nagar. On December 6, 2019, ICPEI aims to create a platform which facilitates integration of a skill-based education, training and consultancy in close association with industry and policy makers with the mission to develop and promote professional education system in India and developing Asian countries to make it globally competitive. So today, ICPEI takes pleasure to announce that Mohammad Mujtaba Tabrezi has been awarded with an honorary membership of ICPEI as token of appreciation in consideration of his invaluable contribution towards industry-academia collaboration.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Aparna.
It's our honor, sir. It's our honor to extend this award and membership to you.
I would cherish it.
So, yeah, and we really do look forward to have more session of yours.
My pleasure.
As it was quite
all the
enlightening.
time, anytime.
So on behalf,
I'm on beck and call of Ajay sir. Yeah. Anytime, no problem.
Thank you.
Yes, we could experience that. So on behalf of entire Jail Bajaj family, we extend our heartfelt thanks to Mohammad Mujtaba Tabrezi for sparing his precious time and enlightening all of us with his practical corporate understanding. We also are thankful to our respected director, Dr. Ajay Kumar sir, for providing us such a great learning platform. Thank you all the faculty members and dear students for being the part of this session.